So I am Niqui O'Neill. Josh is correct. It is pronounced, at least that's how I pronounce it too. I'm not particularly picky about how people pronounce things, so pronounce it however you like. I'm going to be presenting on Annonatate, which is an application I've built to actually annotate images. So a little bit of background. Annonatate actually came out of a project I had worked on before called Annona. Annona is an application that basically displays annotations. So the original, this is something I got assigned when I first started at NC State University Libraries. The original mandate I had been given was basically, we want to be able to see the JSON of an annotation the way it actually looks. So this image on my left, I think you're right, I'm not 100% sure how it's showing up, where it's just the image and the text that is annotating that portion of the image. I took it a step further and I've built storyboard interfaces. If you went to the awesome IIIF, you'll have seen some of those other storyboards. One of the images on the side is just a regular storyboard. You can also do a range, which includes multiple annotations, or a multi-storyboard, which allows you to compare multiple annotations. But basically, we started with actually displaying the annotations. And then we went ahead and tried them out, and we have these visualization studios. So the top image is our 265-degree visualization studio. And we actually tried out Annona in there, and it worked. So Annona is responsive, so it should fit on the smallest screen down to your phone, all the way up to your largest screen. For us, this 265-degree view was our largest screen at the time. We have since upgraded to a 365-degree view, or 360-degree view, which I have not tried out since I haven't been into work since the pandemic started. And we had actually done with one of our professors, before I even got to NC State, a workshop where students went ahead and annotated the bayou by basically sticking sticky notes on the screen. So we thought a good extension or step forward with that project would be to do the same thing, and have students annotate the image and then be able to view it within these spaces. The image below is a multi-storyboard viewed in one of our teaching labs, which is again a big screen. But how to do that? So my original solution was to fork a application called Annotate from Mari Nairop. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And basically the application had a Mirador viewer, and it used local store, and you downloaded your annotations that you made in the browser, and then you had to feed them back in to a Jekyll application and process them and then upload them to GitHub. That would have been too much for our professors. So I built a Vagrant box with a Flash server. So basically every time you create an annotation, it gets written to your Jekyll site automatically and rebuilds. And the image actually shows it's 5 steps to install onto your machine. This still required too many technical skills for our professors. They just could not do it. It was too much for them. So this is how Annonatate was born. Our goals were really to make it sure it was the easiest to use, lowest level of use. Basically, they had some URL to go to or a desktop application that they could go in, make their annotations, and that's it. We wanted it to be IIIF compatible, and we didn't actually want to store any of their annotations. So how to do that? So the original Annotate application had a Mirador and an Annotaries instance installed, and you basically went to one page or the other in order to use it. The problem I found with Mirador is it only allows IIIF manifests. A lot of our professors would want to annotate non-IIIF images, and we didn't want to become like basically an IT support where basically all we were doing all day was creating IIIF images for professors. So we wanted to be able to have them annotate non-IIIF images. Something I had also heard from one of my colleagues at Duke is they have a IIIF instance for their images, but they don't have a presentation API running. So they'd also like to be able to annotate these IIIF images, but they don't have a manifest. So this is what made Annotatorius what made most sense for us. Additionally, the version I'm using for Annotate is the old version. They've since revamped it, so it's a lot more user-friendly and it's a lot more flexible. So it allows plugins. It also is continually in development, and the output is actually a W3 web annotation. So I don't have to do any kind of cleaning on the output. Additionally, Rainier, who's the person who is developing this, is very open to community input. So he's been really great. So made the most sense. We decided to use Flask since we were not hosting any of these annotations. Flask is lightweight, and the lack of database made this a better choice of framework. My institution is a Ruby on Rails institution. It did not make sense for us to use that as a framework since we weren't using any kind of database. I've used Vue.js a little bit in the application just as a inline, basically to contain any JavaScript I needed for the application. I've done some vanilla JavaScript where you just, create a JavaScript file. I found Vue makes a really nice framework for organizing everything. And then the way we were able to get around storing annotations was actually using GitHub. So we use GitHub to, when you log in, the user has a repository made for them on GitHub, and everything they create, all the annotations they create, get written automatically to GitHub. And we're able to do that because GitHub has a really robust API. And Flask actually already has a library that handles all the authentication, which is another reason why it was really nice to use GitHub, because any user can sign up for free and we don't have to worry about doing any kind of authentication service. And then we use Jekyll as a static site generator. So when their GitHub repo is formed, it's actually forking a repository I made with a Jekyll website. So this allows whenever they create an annotation, the site will automatically rebuild, which is why I use Jekyll instead of something like Hugo. And allows users to retain control of their items, and it creates a website for them. So all their annotations have a permanent web address that they can use on other sites, because annotations are, because they're a standard, they're interoperable with a number of applications. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a walkthrough. Can everyone see this? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and log in. Here we go. Okay, so this is Annonatate, and this is a list of just example manifests and images that you can go ahead and start annotating. So this is just an image from one of my colleagues at Duke, and you can go ahead and annotate this. You can also do just regular images. This is a JPEG image from Wikipedia, or you can go through a manifest. So here, let me see if here's a manifest with multiple images, and you can scroll through and look at the thumbnails and basically choose which image you want to annotate there. It also supports layered annotations. So this annotation actually has multiple images in the manifest, and you can go ahead and change the opacity. So maybe I want it to, it's not a perfect lineup, unfortunately. So you can do all that. And I'm going to show you how to annotate an image, but I want to switch workspaces. So when you go into the profile view, you can actually see I have an invitation from myself. I have 2 GitHub accounts for this. And I've invited myself to collaborate on this workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that invitation. And you can see currently I'm on this workspace, which is the annotate, which is the username followed by the name of the workspace. and I'm going to switch over to this workspace. And when you, actually, I'm going to show you quickly. I'm going to switch back. So if you go into the annotations tab, you're going to see there are no annotations. But if I go back and switch over to this workspace, when I go to the annotations tab, you're going to see there are annotations because that workspace has annotations. And you can do multiple workspaces. There's a way within the profile where you can create workspaces. And so these are annotations that have been created through the application. You can do basic HTML in here. You can add videos. Again, you just use basic HTML. This is actually the previous annotation, so you can embed annotations using Annona. And so you can view all these annotations. You can also, there's a display URL. So if I want to view this in a storyboard view, I can do this, and you can share this with people. So just go through all the annotations. Excuse me. And there's also an image view, which is just this. Those are like permanent links that you can share with people. You can also build a custom view. So if you want, so I'm going to change this from image viewer to storyboard viewer. These are the settings enabled with Annona, which I know are kind of a lot and overwhelming. I'm trying to figure out a way to make them less so. But let's say I want the fit to be a horizontal view so that the image fits all the way. And maybe I want the view to be a collapsible, or maybe I want to, yeah, we'll just do collapse. So basically when you do it, it's a full view. When you tab through annotations, it's a full view. You can do that instead. So there are a number of settings, but if you wanted to be able to keep this, you'd save it here. And it's been saved. And if you go into the custom view section, it's still rendering. So I will come back to this, but there'll be a URL that you can reuse. You can also build collections. So if I want to create a collection, these are not collections in the IIIF sense. They're collections in the sense where you have multiple annotations in one viewer. So we'll call this IIIF 2021. And we'll make that a storyboard view and make this the Bayou. And you can add it to the collection. And right now it just looks like a storyboard, but if I go back into annotations and add this to the collection as well, excuse me, and I'll make it a storyboard view as well, and I add it to the collection, you can see you actually have a storyboard where you can tab through these Bayou annotations, but you can also go to the next one and tab through the annotations, including a view of my work where I haven't been in over a year. You can also search these annotations. So maybe I want to see all the longboat annotations, and it will show you all these annotations. Let's see, there's also a help tab. So if you want to see, the entire site has been documented. So everything getting started has a walkthrough. Pretty much everything has a video at this point. I wanted to leave enough time for questions. So I'm going to stop now and answer some questions, and then we can come back. And I'm going to go ahead and put my contact information up. So questions?
Thanks, Niqui. As people are noting in the comment, it's just such like an incredible array of solutions to different IIIF problems. Really killer stuff. There's like, as I said, there's some great comments in the chat. There is a question, and maybe there's more coming, but Brian Haberberger asks, how did you get those non-IIIF images into those viewers? In the past, he's heard of Level 0 Pyramid through OpenSeaDragon. Maybe Mirador 3 does this now?
So the way I was able to get IIIF images into, like, Annona takes IIIF or non-IIIF images via OpenSeaDragon, same way that Annonatate does for annotating. So OpenSeaDragon allows for just regular images, and I have a checker on that. Let's see. For the image view, there are certain things that you, so if you go into the image view, I do have to use a canvas for regular images. Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, there, I'm unmuted. I think that probably covers Brian's question. I actually mentioned this in the chat. We, and by we, I mean Glenn Robeson, who's the technical coordinator for IIIF, has been doing some work. It's very much inspired by the Jekyll and GitHub flows you've been working on. And Glenn asks, did you come across any problems with GitHub pages caching? I think, which is something he's run into when it comes to some of the training things he's built.
Yeah, so GitHub pages itself is just kind of a pain. So I've run into problems where it takes a while to rebuild. When you first log in, I've had problems where it doesn't want to build the GitHub pages site, which is why I have troubleshooting. But part of the way I was able to get around that was the application. When you create an annotation, it checks for that like successful creation of the annotation and we'll add it to a local store. So that way you don't have to like, so I can actually show you. So if you create an annotation, it's going to automatically show up. Oh, and I can go back to this custom views. So as you can see, there is now a URL where that custom view is. But if you actually create an annotation, it's going to show up automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and the way you create an annotation is you hold down the shift key and you drag and we'll add a 1. So if you actually go into the annotation tab, you should see this annotation has been automatically created because I route it to the local store, but the GitHub URL has not been specifically rendered yet. So basically we do a check every, I want to say 45 seconds, I think, that checks GitHub. Like it will keep everything in local and then I'll check GitHub after 45 seconds because that tends to be about the time it takes to rebuild. I've had less trouble with like caching because because of the way I'm like getting everything, it tends to like the rebuild tends to be there.
That's great. I'm seeing more good comments, but I don't see any other questions. Maybe I have time for one more if somebody pops it in there quickly. Otherwise, I guess I will, at the risk of sounding like this isn't already enough and amazing, I'm just curious, yeah, if you quick thoughts about, yeah, like what your first set of priorities are for next, next developments.
Yeah, so I want to be able to have it where people can custom define like what, like if they want to have like a special like fields within the annotation. So like basically so people can customize that. So that's one of the things I'm looking at. Annotations has just released new shapes, which include, I think, circle, freehand drawing, and I think a tilted box. So I'd like to integrate those as well. I have some UX updates coming down the pipeline. I've reached out to the UX department at my institution and they are planning on getting back to me. You can actually upload your own images with this and you can create a manifest with a single image in the upload tab. I'd like to expand that as well. And then I've been really inspired by some of the talks I've seen here at the IIIF conference for expanding Annona. So specifically, I'd like to do some offline mode, some map overlay for GeoJSON objects. I'm definitely stealing that scroll view. The overlay text views I've seen, those are great. I'd like to integrate those into Annona. Probably collections as well, and then AV as well. So I have a
short list.
Yeah.
This is tremendous. I mean, I feel like I'm just repeating myself. It's just great to see this. I think I speak on behalf of everybody here. We really look forward to all the stuff you just mentioned, all the updates, and maybe, you know, another update at the next conference. I'm gonna call it there in terms of time, but there are good comments. Take a look at the Whova platform, and if there are other questions, maybe we can continue it there. So with that, I'll say, yeah, Niqui, thanks very much for presenting this. Thanks, folks, for joining us. Yeah, and have a great day, and we'll see you at the next session in the conference.